Feels good to be back on a Monday morning, brand new month again and brand new week. Most importantly, how excited we are. Having had a very restful weekend, we could say that you're welcome to the start of a brand new show with the same crew, and you know what you're to expect. I'm Joe Hansen, welcoming you to Breakfast Central.
And I'm Benga Borough, but I'll leave the honors to our dear lady here.
I wonder how you both survived.
Oh, well, yeah,
you didn't see me on Friday.
We didn't notice.
We didn't even notice. It was such a great show. We have to keep the standards. We can't allow your absence to make the standards drop.
Yeah.
So when you went, we were doing.
But we missed you, to be honest.
No.
You know, sometimes we try as much as possible to show that masculinity.
There are some jokes and some banter that.
How did even our viewers cope turning on TV and seeing testosterone up and down?
The only thing is they loved the thing about News Central anchors is that we're just fine like that.
It's true. They love it.
Take a look at us for once now. Come on,
you will love it.
Come on, you love it. You want to start your day looking at beautiful. Come on, man.
Yeah,
come on.
Handsome faces, beautiful.
Well dressed. Come on.
Yeah.
Because you were my
Let's cover.
It was an eventful weekend.
It was
so many sad events.
So many sad
some
events.
Positives, but I mean the flooding, the accident, Kano, terrible. Yeah.
But it's good to be here this morning. I want to say thank you for joining us and starting your new month with us. Today is the 2nd of June.
Yep.
June marks the 6th month of the year. Just yesterday we said Happy New Year, and all of a sudden we're in June. We hope that you've been able to review your goals for 2025 and the things you're set to achieve, you're not yet achieved, or you haven't yet achieved, that you can start to maybe rework your plan. And if all you could save so far this year is your life, I think you've done well. It's not been the easiest of years. So well done to you. We hope that June brings all the pleasant surprises for you. Today on the show, a number of conversations to explore, but just to encourage you to engage with us on social media at News Central TV or Joe Hansen, Benga Borough, Oliver Modi on X. We'll be glad to take your tweets in response to any of the stories we'll be looking at today.
That's right. But talking about the things to look out for, Benga had mentioned the sad story or events that took place throughout the weekend, and there was also the commissioning of the 30-kilometer road by Mr. President. That also generated a lot of conversations, most importantly reactions from Nigerians. But one that has got everybody talking, let's put it that way, is the fact that the federal government has plans to deploy AI to identify poor Nigerians.
Okay. I saw that story and I had to go and look at the source to think, I was doubting its authenticity and I thought maybe it was a clickbait. But lo and behold, one day if I have twins, I would name them Lo and Behold. But we'll get to that on another day.
Please leave me alone. It's too early. What is that?
Lo and Behold.
No, come here, behold.
Yes. The president spoke and talked about a whole lot, especially ensuring that the president has said during his administration that he's going to take away Nigerians from poverty through the programs that he's put in place. But this one is a fresh new program. Artificial intelligence. The goal is that AI would be used to verify, identify, and ensure that all poor people in a district, location, area will be identified from the artificial intelligence, from the space, zooming in, checking in, using their phone number.
There isn't satellite.
You know what got me shook? Yeah. Let me use the foreign word, shook. Permit us. We have to, speak the lingua of both the Gen Zs and everybody.
I have to carry everybody along.
And I said, this is not giving, because they said they're going to use phone numbers to see people how they recharge, to know how they identify the poor. I said, what is going on?
Why? That may not be such a bad idea. On a normal day, I think that the world is evolving, and so we must as well. We must be able to use artificial intelligence for our benefit. We should be able to use it to do positive things, right? To make get data, use it to gather data. However,
make your work more efficient.
Exactly, make your work efficient. When people say, "Oh, AI is going to take over our jobs,"
no.
Experts would say humans who use AI will take over the jobs of humans who don't. So it's great that as the world is
a rival TV station launched AI presenters in Pidgin, so be careful.
Anyway,
even that one that is drinking coffee on set.
I could be AI, yo. You see the way I'm moving.
Careful.
You see the way I could be AI, yo. You see me
I think that it's important that we start to think of ways in which we can use artificial intelligence for our benefit. Right? The world is evolving. We need to be able to keep up with global best practices. However, we're not oblivious of the fact that there are lots of challenges that this poses for us. Let's talk about the financially excluded communities. There are those who don't have access to bank accounts, internet, the poorest of the poor. They are financially excluded, they are digitally excluded. How do we capture their data? Also, data storage or data, we've had a challenge with data collation in Nigeria, where, for example, you're having multiplicity of registrations. Today they are telling you, come and do BVN, tomorrow NIN. The day after.
Sensors,
so it just feels like every other day there is one information or the other. How are these data being used? How are they being protected? How are they being stored? And also the challenge with artificial intelligence, depending on how the AI has been trained with information it's been fed. There's also the risk of certain biases.
Look,
so I don't know if we're completely there yet.
The use of AI, I mean, I don't understand the part of using AI to identify the poor. You already have a Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. They have a social. They have a register
that wants to use the AI.
So they have a register of people that are poor. They need to upgrade their register. They need to also update it to know those who have passed, who are still in the register, and things like that. AI should be deployed to cover areas to make their work more efficient. Not to identify. What do you mean by you're using AI to identify?
And what is the guarantee about the transparency regarding the National Social Register?
So it's let's deal with the human part first and be more efficient in distribution and getting to those who are in real need of these facilities before you start. I can understand. It's the buzzword. It's high sounding.
I think we have to bring the Honourable Minister here. We have to bring the Honourable. So what we'll do is we'll reach out to the Honourable Minister, Professor Nentawe. I always ensure that I get the pronunciation of his name right. Yes, Honourable Minister Nentawe Yilwatda. He's been here before with us on Breakfast Central, and we've spoken before. So we'll try and ensure that we get him back again. But then again, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at other interesting wake-up stories for you here on Breakfast Central. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central here on News Central Television, and it's still the wake-up conversation segment. We just talked about the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs saying they want to use AI to identify the multi-dimensionally poor people in the country, and this has garnered a lot of reactions and also controversy. But
if we're being honest about it, we don't need to. With or without AI, we can already see the multidimensionally poor. They are all around you. You don't need to look too far to see the multidimensionally poor. Those who are, food poor and multidimensional, they're everywhere.
And they have a register.
But also, I think before we even get into trying to use AI to ensure that we find out who the multidimensionally poor are, so as to be able to maybe include them in the cash register, social register. We need to look at what we've done so far. How successful has it been?
True.
How many Nigerians who say they've gotten that 75,000 naira? And yes, I know the minister did say that in the urban areas we look down on 75,000 naira, but in the rural areas it's a big deal. And we completely understand it is a big deal because minimum wage is 70,000 naira. So 75,000 naira is a great idea. But how many Nigerians have gotten it? I don't know anybody. Maybe they will say it's not within my circles. But I don't know people. I can't say I've seen people who have gotten it. Maybe the people who have gotten it are not on social media, because that also shows maybe just how excluded.
There's also another question about party loyalty, and I hope this conditional cash transfers are not given based on party affiliation, because what you normally get is in local governments, they organize along party lines and this and that. I hope it's evenly distributed to every Nigerian regardless of party affiliations.
I mean,
hopefully they get it.
I agree with you, but I also have a cause for worry, and it is because it is the same ministry that has always been in the news for the wrong reasons that is also coming back with this story again. Remember the instance of Beta Edu? We haven't cleared that issue yet. There has been no statement from the presidency on, or the federal government on the current situation after her name and other names were mentioned, the past, on how XYZ amount was spent and how it cannot be accounted
And this
for.
is what leads to a culture of impunity. There's no consequences for actions.
Thank you.
And they investigate forever and ever.
again.
And then we move on to the next big issue.
And the thing is, in their investigation, nobody is saying, if you're saying that Beta Edu had to be fired from her position because there was some actions that were not maybe moral, if there was any form of illegality, Nigerians deserve to know. In fact, the government should come out and say, okay, we've done, or the law enforcement agents, we've done our investigation, we found that she did not commit a crime, but there should be an explanation of some sort. We found that she did not commit a crime, therefore we will not be pressing charges. However, what she did was morally or ethically wrong, which is why we have suspended her. Right? But there should be an explanation of some sort. Not just allow it in the typical Nigerian way. They make a lot of noise about it after when everybody will forget. And we move on to the next thing. When the government brings up ideas that on the face of it are good, this is why Nigerians kick back. Because of these little things that sows the seed of distrust and further widens the trust deficit that we have in our nation. So when we run a nation, a government that acts like it is not accountable to the people, that is what further widens the trust deficit. That is why even when the government brings up ideas that on the face of it are great ideas, people will always look at it and be like, are you sure they're not doing this? Are you sure it's not for...
Yeah, there's
always that
doubt.
mistrust. It would always be there until we can start to clean house.
So 2 questions we'll leave our viewers with this morning. 1, where is Beta Edu? That's a question. No, that's a question, because if she is free, then it should also be communicated to Nigerians, because it's not
she was investigated and she wasn't found guilty of any wrongdoing. Either way,
if you've not found out one thing, then let her and tell Nigerians so that she can either come back to politics or come back to running a different ministry.
Or even if she's not coming back, just to let us know that we've done the investigation, we've not found any prima facie case against her, so we will not be pressing charges.
It's not good on the personality of the individual. So we demand that at least for once, just come out and say, oh, this is what happened, and keeping it hush-hush. 2, I forgot my second question. My first question was where she is, and the second question was basically about...
when you remember.
Anyway, when I remember, I'll remember, and I'll definitely ask Nigerians. But I think the first question is very paramount. It's key. We need to know. So it does good for the person, and it also helps to build trust, because there will be a communique that will be, reeled out that these are the reasons, this is what we found, and this is
you're
the
just keeping Nigerians updated. Yeah. You're doing your job.
And ensuring that you're accountable to Nigeria.
Exactly.
And then that's my second question. My second question is, do you think that politicians are accountable to Nigerians?
Politicians ought to be accountable to Nigerians. In fact, politicians are bound to be accountable to Nigerians, unfortunately. What is not what it ought to be. So right now, a lot of it, again, like we say, the office of the citizen is the highest office of the land. Citizens must start to demand for more from their politicians when they go to the polls. The quality of people that
an informed citizenry, educated citizenry, and that's what we do here on traditional media, to educate and enlighten the people on their rights and knowing what to do to strengthen our democracy.
By the way, let's also remind Nigerians that the tint permit has started though. So if you are driving and you don't have your...
Why you reminded the police?
No, we have to remind them, because the police are ready. They are ready. From this morning,
food is ready.
From this morning, they are not.
Food has been served.
They said, okay, now let's go. Who is that doesn't have his permits? Let's talk to you. So if this morning, be careful. All right.
Okay, let's move to our next. Point. Over the course of the weekend, the former governor of Rivers State, Governor His Excellency Rotimi Amechi, turned 60, and in celebration of his 60th birthday, a number of politicians were gathered in the same place, and they're speaking about weaponizing poverty against Nigerians. They were of the position that the current administration has weaponized poverty against Nigerians, criticizing the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu registration. They talked about the potential of a coalition to unseat President Bola Ahmed Tinubu come 2027, with Rotimi Amechi being hailed as a fulcrum or a balancing force for that coalition to happen. A number of people did speak about this. His Excellency Alhaji Atiku Abubakar spoke about it. Nasir El-Rufai spoke about this as well. And the criticisms were really strong. It would seem that they are all, well on the way towards building this coalition to unseat the president. But we of course have seen the way that Nigerians have addressed this. There are those who believe that this is a great idea because Rotimi Amechi would be that opposition force against whatever it is Wike has planned for 2027. Because whether you like it or not, Wike is a force that you can't toss around, as he has shown himself to be an MVP when it comes to the game of politics, looking at the PDP and the APC and the strong force and influence that he wields in both political parties. And so they say that Rotimi Amechi will be that strong force to counter him. However, there are those who say that these people, these politicians are there for their own personal interests because they are asking, what difference have we seen in the country from when you were in power? Now you're saying that the politicians are weaponizing poverty. Take, for example, those who have had 24 years at the corridors of power, who have served as minister, Speaker of the House,
how many people did you bring out
governor,
poverty?
gone to the National Assembly. Rotimi Amechi had a lot of time in the corridors of power, and some of the reactions we've seen are people asking, when you were in office, what was different? How would you say that the quality of life of Nigerians was better? So those are the both sides that we've seen when it comes to the argument for and against. However, there's another camp that is starting to tout, or rather push for an Atiku Amechi coalition, an Atiku Amechi-led coalition. They believe that Atiku and Amechi together will be a very strong and viable force against.
At the end of the day, Nigerians will decide. And I like that Nigerians are now more politically. But let's listen to former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar.
I want to amend a little bit of amendment and state organization of poverty. Why I say so? When I was growing up in the north, the most prosperous city or state was Kano State. The most prosperous. And incidentally, as soon as I finished my secondary school, my first location was Kano State. I never saw people sleeping outside. Then there were no footages of fireworks. I never saw people sleeping outside or outside the shops in Kano State. Recently, people were all over state.
One of the easiest things to do is to be a critic. It's easy. I mean, this, with due respect to the politicians that were speaking on that podium, this administration has just been in office for 2 years. Rotimi Amechi was part of a former administration. He was transport minister for the whole entire duration of 8 years. And then you are speaking, of course, some of the issues they highlight is the reality. There's poverty, politicians have weaponized poverty, but you're part of the problem. You were all part and parcel of the problem. You held elective office. How much did you change in the lot of Nigerians? How many people did you bring out of poverty? What programs could you point to? Were you not part of a system that weaponized, using young people for your electoral issues and things like that? So why do you speak like you are innocent or you are from a different planet and then you are pointing fingers?
Criticize him and his administration as you may. The reason we're here is because of policies that were made over the course of the past few years. I know people hate when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu says he inherited a failing economy. But it's not a lie. If you look at the years and the people who were in office before, the policies they made, what was President Buhari's administration like? Was it a great administration? Yes, things looked good on the surface of it, but because of a number of the poor policies, or policies that could not have been implemented, it has led us to where we are, right? Yes, part of why I would think that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration is getting a lot of backlash would be, apart from the fact that there's poverty, if you're saying to citizens that they need to cut down and manage it for a while, they need to see that everybody, including those at the helm of office, the legislature, the executive and the judiciary, I think that's the major thing. While citizens are cutting down, the government doesn't seem to be cutting down. They're still living large, right? So at the end of the day, all of them, they all have a role to play in where Nigeria is. The ones in the years before, the policies they made, they also have questions. If we get to the point where past presidents are made to be able to come and after their time in office, immunization no longer covers them, they're made to be able to face the law. Immunity, thank you very much. Immunity no longer covers them. They're made to face, just like we saw in South Africa where Jacob Zuma, had a case to answer. If we start to see situations
even
like
in
this,
France,
where
in France
as well.
Presidents know that while you are in office, do whatever you like, immunity covers you, but the moment you step out, you know the way they say freedom of speech is guaranteed, freedom of speech, however.
Same with China.
So you know that once you come out, you have questions to answer, you have to be accountable to the people, and the full course of the law can, the law that can run its full course against you. I feel like we'll be able to see a better handling of government.
It surprises me how most times Olive, you just hit the nail on the head. Perfect. Because if you speak to Nigerians, they will tell you that this is the crux of the major issue that they have with any administration. When the former president came into power, his past antecedents was highlighted that this is someone during 1984
he will fight corruption,
who was known to come in, he would fight corruption, but it was also highlighted that he would come with certain policies that could bring about pain to Nigeria and Nigerians. And everybody said, okay, fine, but then again, part of his campaign policies was that corruption will be gone. Corruption will be gone.
How well did the corruption gone?
But Nigerians kept waiting. After 4 years, this corruption is still wearing its ugly head. In short, the last 4 years, it was as if it never existed, and that's given birth to what we see with the embattled former CBN governor having over 756
under his watch.
Under his watch, and so on. And then there were many duplicities of corrupt practices.
All these budget padding that we're talking about, seeing how many millions.
Exactly.
Remember, did it start in President Bola Tinubu's administration? So, were they not all part of the administration that allowed for budget padding? They're all acting like everything just completely.
The highlight
they don't have a role.
The highlight of this is the Nigerian people, the ordinary Nigerian, is getting more politically educated, maybe through the advent of social media, because they see through this. And like you rightly said, that some of the comments said, look, well, you people not part of this government, so what are you saying? We're not back to 2015, where is no Goodluck Jonathan, but not anybody but Goodluck Jonathan. Nigerians will be more circumspect in even scrutinizing opposition. They're not happy with the present administration. Some of them aren't. And those who aren't would not just say, okay, anybody but APC. They have to look at the motivation for the opposition, their antecedents, their track records before, you can't you are not just going to win my vote because I'm not satisfied with the current government. So it helps our democracy and enlightens people about the political process. So it's a good way to go. I think what we should be fighting for is that we have wider options to choose from, but quality, because I think you're just picking politicians from everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, so until you have a critical mass of them that are quality and mean well for Nigerians,
are you sure
I'm hoping that more Nigerians, especially more, maybe the younger generation, I'm hoping that we get to see more people interested, because everybody's like, I'm not interested in politics.
When you say younger generation, I begin to look, a country is built from the youth, the strength of the youth and the wisdom of the adults. Yeah. You've seen some of the young representatives we've had. You've seen Better Edu and.
But why I don't want us to write off the younger generation is because Better Edu is just a fraction. She does not represent the majority, because the people who have pillaged our commonwealth or pilfered our commonwealth are still the older generation, the ones that have refused to allow the leaders of tomorrow.
Young people carry their Gen Z behavior to governance.
I think it's that Gen Z audacity that
I think that's a topic we should highlight maybe this Friday. Let's have a few younger, politicians.
Look, let's talk about competence.
Let's balance it.
competence across board, regardless of age.
Let's see
it's competence.
The summary for me would be we need more people interested in politics. It's not enough to say, I don't care about politics, politics is dirty. If you keep thinking and viewing it from the lens of politics is dirty, I'm not interested, we'll keep recycling the same people, and then we have no reason to complain.
Well, from my own point, I always say, as a journalist, our job is to ensure that while we, maintain our neutrality, we should also be able to tell which is right and which is left, which is very key, and that's exactly what we do here every now and then. But
do we have time for PSG story?
Just to wrap things up this morning, PSG, they won the UEFA Champions League, and kudos
for the first
time in their history. But what happened after the winning is what hurts me the most.
Celebrations gone haywire.
Have you seen what is happening in France?
17-year-old boy killed, 23-year-old man killed, the number of police officers injured,
over 500 and something arrested.
I think they just love rioting and protesting in Paris.
It started off like what you see on the screen here. All beautiful. So my question is, why the riot? Why the stealing? Why theft? Why the violence? Is it because they won? That's why? Or there's an undertone behind it? Or is it a case of maybe a certain few dressed as PSG supporters decided to say, should they win, we're going to retaliate and tear down everywhere, both the blocks, the streets, and so on. But it was a fantastic win for PSG. Our own simply is, there's a rule in football and it says football without violence. That's what the law, that's what the basic global.
That's why it's called a beautiful game.
Yeah, it's a beautiful game. The round of the game is beautiful. And now they won, but we are talking about the violence that erupted after that, how it's killed.
Over celebration.
I'm seeing here that there was a report that all those hurt were from the same family, the police said. I don't know if they're talking about same family of club supporters or same family of biological connection, but we're seeing that 22 police officers, 7 firefighters were injured, while 264 vehicles were set on fire. Why?
Why? Because they won the championship.
Why?
They should have just allowed Arsenal to win it.
No, Arsenal didn't even get to the finals.
Maybe they would have.
They should
have allowed Arsenal to beat them.
Yes.
So but after all of this virus, they still went ahead with the celebration parade on Sunday.
Yeah.
But I'm very disappointed in Inter Milan. This is the best of European football. You get to the finals and you allow them to trash you 5-0 when it's not Principal's Cup.
It was as if it was just round one. It was as if it was group stage. Inter Milan 5-1. But with what we heard, the coach had studied Inter Milan and found out that Inter Milan likes to play from the goalkeeper, from the back, where he's very important in terms of ball distribution, and then you have the defenders. I don't want to go into analysis, but that will
wait
time.
for game on.
Game on will have all of that. But
But I love that you're showing your talent. You're multidimensional.
Yeah, I started off as a sports journalist.
Fantastic.
Recall, right? But then again, this is sad.
This rubbish in Nigeria.
This is what you call celebration. Jubilation.
No, not this one.
Celebration is out of hand.
This is violation.
264 vehicles on fire.
It's painful.
Good thing they have insurance. You can't live in Paris.
You begin to understand.
The riots happen.
What if you are a tourist? Imagine me now thinking I need a break from all this political stuff. And I went to Paris.
If I'm not mistaken, the Roland Garros French Open is currently on. And they'll be looking at football fans like, oh, you hooligans. You never hear this sort of
These are
behavior
not true
in tennis.
fans.
That's why I love tennis and golf and darts, gentle and snooker.
Snooker is not part of them. Tennis, golf,
snooker is
in a class of their own.
So you play golf, Winger?
I would love to watch golf.
You aspire to play golf.
Okay,
I've not gotten to that level yet. Do you know how much golf?
So you can go there. A lot of they learn how to play golf here. Some people, let's be honest. There are some who that play golf. It's not really because of the game. It's just because of networking. Because they say that's where you meet.
Oh yeah, I remember when I used to play golf way back, but I can't wait to tee off again.
You used to play golf?
Yeah. I started, but I'm going back to basketball from this weekend. I need to go back to
New Central's LeBron James. Know what I'm saying?
Anyway, for those of us who said we'll start working out in January, June is the 6th month of the year.
LeBron Joe.
We're starting again. All right, enough of the wake-up conversations. We would share with you what our top stories are and, to let you know exactly what we'll be discussing this morning and how you can be a part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Let's take a look at our top stories. This morning on our top stories, we'll be looking at the Exam Malpractice Tribunal. There have been serious allegations of questions leaking. We'll also be looking at the state of the nation, talking about economics, where we are as a nation, as well as scores that have been killed and, displaced in Niger after the flood aftermath. That's another one of the stories we'll be exploring. We'll be giving you the updates on Rano DPO killing and what the current situation is. The newspaper front pages, of course, we do that every morning. You join us for this. We'll have our analyst and you join us. In a bid to curb the rising rate of examination malpractices in the country, the federal government of Nigeria has proposed the establishment of a National Examination Malpractice Court Tribunal to ensure the prompt prosecution of examination fraud and to serve as a strong deterrent against cheating. This announcement was made by the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, while receiving a report from a 17-member committee tasked with improving the quality of examination in Abuja.
This comes amidst recent leakage of exam questions in the ongoing West African Senior School Certificate Examination. Reports have it that some officials of the exam body might be connected to the leakage, particularly the circulation of the English language paper to the public 4 days before the examination. According to Punch, the West African Examination Council has started investigating, and the police has opened a probe into the matter. Join us this morning on Breakfast Central to discuss this development and whether or not it would have any impact in curbing the cases of examination malpractices is team lead and editor-in-chief at Dev Reporting, Mojid Alabi. Mr. Alabi, warm welcome to you, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, Mr. Alabi, is this a one-off, or do we have a problem with the exam malpractices and examination leakage, or this is just a one-time thing?
Oh, great. Thank you so much. This has been on for a very long time. It has always been there, and if you look at it, at the time JAM came up with the fact that nobody goes into examination hall with bracelets, with eyeglasses, with this, with that. Yet the malpractice continued. So because it is not just you can just, it's like you are not addressing the root causes of the challenge. What you are trying to do is just to cure the symptoms. So, and when that happens, it's a problem that cannot just go away. You will continue to have a lot of, there is going to be mathematics tomorrow. I can bet it that there's still going to be malpractice.
So malpractice on the part of the students, or leakage of exams, questions prior to the examination, which ones do we see more that happen more rampant?
This thing is a systemic problem. If you look at it, it's only in Nigeria you are going to have tutorial centers that are much more powerful than even examination bodies. That was the first war that Oloride fought when he came. They even have association of the tutorial center operators. And there are centers that you call miracle centers. There are centers that you even have parents enrolling their children. Special centers. So when this happens, it's actually a kind of an endemic system. It is ingrained in our system, and there are just few reasons. And I laughed when they said there's going to be special tribunal. There can be as many tribunals as possible. Law is not our problem. Rules are not our problem. They are clear, they are there. How many tribunals are you going to have? We have a tribunal against traffic offenders. We have tribunal against people who cross road. We have tribunal against those who defecate. We have so how many tribunals are you going to have? So it is really not about tribunal. The problems, if we go there, we will list a whole lot of issues that lead to this. There will continue to be examination malpractice. I said it times to that number. There was a time the examination body, WAEC in particular, had the regional body had a session here in Lagos, and they brought in people from different places, and they showed a whole lot of cases of examination malpractice. And maybe because of the population in Nigeria, the cases are very, very much in Nigeria. But I stood up at that forum, and that was where Professor Oloride also attended, and that was the first place he said, going forward, nobody will use bracelets, nobody will use rings, nobody will use glasses. And I said, no. You will continue to introduce a whole lot of things. You can't get there. As you are developing one system to defeat them, they are also producing another system because we have not really tackled the major issue that is behind the examination malpractice. And what that number one is this: there is too much emphasis on that certificate. People look at the reward system as, if I have the paper, nobody wants to know whether I have the intellect, whether I have the skill.
Yeah, but the parents, do they know that they're cheating their children?
Oh, in fact,
because down the road you will see you can't cheat your way through life. So I don't understand.
Do you know that? Do you know that parents? Do you know that parents? There is a report now in a particular school in Akure. Parents mobilized thugs to go and beat up vice principal. Yes, because he didn't allow the child to cheat in the examination. Yes, it is a report. I will share it with you.
It says a lot about value system.
Again,
Please share that
this just
report
shows.
with us, please.
Sorry?
I like that report.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, like he said, it goes to show that our value system is broken. But let's go back to what he said the core cause of this is, which is the fact that there's an overemphasis on the importance of the WAEC certificate. And we no longer try to probe to see if what's upstairs matches with what's written on the certificate. How do we de-emphasize the importance of WAEC certificate?
Oh, that is why you see a whole lot of our politicians, not just WAEC certificate, every single paper anybody could acquire. And that is why you are going to see somebody who calls himself a minister, and the next thing you are going to see, I'm Dr. So, because it's an honorary doctorate degree that he got somewhere. There are many of them who refer to themselves Dr. So.
There are hardly any ordinary ministers.
Yeah, so he's doctor. Because one church somewhere, one mashalashi somewhere, one religious center has awarded that honorary doctorate degree. That's one. Yeah, there is even a law against it. Yes. The NUC has a system in place, a law in place that you cannot go to the public to be addressing yourself as a doctor if you do not have PhD. Yes, but you see them, so it's because they believe that the respect will come only when the paper is there. I've said it here before. We have an inverted pyramid system of education. The one that recognizes the fact that everybody must go to university. And I keep saying it until we de-emphasize that. That's why you don't see candidates going to college of education any longer. Yeah. That's why you don't see candidates opting for polytechnics. Those that you see that will go there are the dregs. Okay. Those who could not make it to other courses. Today, we have, and the problems are just too many. If anybody is setting up any tribunal, we are just deceiving ourselves. And I'm going to explain why. Currently in Nigeria today, there is a shortfall of over 200,000 teachers. Yes, known to the government. That is in public space, in public schools. Go to the private. What are the schools that make up private? These are mushroom schools. These are, they call some low-cost schools because they are the schools available, because the government will not provide the enough schools
to absorb
the students. Now, when you come back to the major challenge that we currently face, where there will continue to be examination malpractice, there will continue to be yahoo. We have lost that moral compass that used to drive us around and guide our ways. You have seen a situation whereby nobody wants to know where you are coming from. Once there is going to be recruitment is no longer based on merit. It is based on who do you know. Once you are able to tender whatever paper you have, that is why it is not, go to higher institutions. This is, for the first time I heard about 5-10 years ago. What did I hear? You will see students of certain department. When some of us are going home, they say they are not going home. What are these guys still doing in school? They will tell you that they are doing sorting. And I said, what is sorting?
Way back.
Yeah, they will tell you we are doing sorting. What is sorting? Sorting means that they want to monitor their papers. They want to know who is going to mark their paper. That's departmental level, right from the school. You have seen parents who mobilize themselves and form association for Yahoo Plus, Yahoo. It's a systemic failure. So the only way you can de-emphasize, and I think the minister is also trying to do something right. And what is that? You have to de-emphasize this former academic structure.
There should be vocational emphasis.
And that is what it's doing with the TVET. Introduction of TVET, and it's also saying if you go for vocational schools, you are entitled to 45,000 naira on a monthly basis.
Yes.
You are entitled to free tuition. You are entitled to
food.
It's a way of discouraging us. When you go abroad, I have friends, I have brothers, I have relatives who, when their cars are damaged, they don't even try to go. If you want to be this, you say you want to go to roadside mechanic or roadside panel beater, you have a challenge. It's going to be you per hour. It's going to take break during that hour. If your vehicle is sleeping in his workshop, you are going to pay extra because they treat them as if they are professionals. Not as if, because they are professionals.
Even plumbers.
They don't send you about whether you have certificate or not. It is about the skills that you have. And if they are organizing probably 6-month training, whatever, once you have the skill. So that is why you don't see everybody rushing to university. Who can afford university education?
What you're suggesting sounds more long-term. Do we have short-term solutions that can be put in place to fix this? Is there the role that we have?
What? There are multiple problems. So which problems do you
So the problem would be, let's talk about the malpractice problem, the malpractice issue.
Yeah.
Do we have short-term solutions to fix the malpractice issue? Is there the area of the conversation about punitive measures, maybe not just for the students, the schools,
parents.
The teachers, the parents who encourage malpractice?
Oh, yeah, it is important. Yes, punishment is ideal. I think and that is why I pity WAEC. WAEC is 73 years old, and WAEC does not conduct exam only in Nigeria.
Yeah,
it conducts in 5 African states: Liberia, Ghana, Sierra Leone, and the challenge that they have had so far, battling. You know what it costs to reproduce a single paper.
And they had to reproduce paper.
They had to, and that was what happened. And people said, why didn't WAEC postpone? You don't postpone the examination that is regional. It wasn't taking place only in Nigeria. As you are writing here, they were writing in Ghana, they were writing in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, in the Gambia. So the problem is that until we are able to actually sit down, how do we address this major challenge? Number one is the fact that people talk about punitive measures. We have such measures in place against corruption, as is taught corruption. It is from each home we must go back to preach that value. Our churches and mosques, what they preach now is prosperity. They no longer preach moral. We must make it. There is a kind of a video that is in circulation, this advert by a guy about a Benz. And what did he ask the Benz? He said, can civil servants afford you? And that one said, oh, maybe in 2062.
Yes.
And National Orientation Agency had to write the guy.
Yes.
And why? Because you can't be preaching this kind of a thing and discouraging people who are working very hard, telling them that they cannot afford a car, because some small boys that are stealing from somewhere can afford such luxury. So until we are able to build a kind of, so all of us, NOA, the teachers, the parents, because immediately this thing happened, what we did at in my own organization, Education Writers Association of Nigeria, which I currently lead, we brought all the stakeholders together. WAEC, HNO, NECO registrar, and even the director of senior secondary education at the Federal Ministry of Education, Ajahn Binta Abdulkadir, and we brought all of them together. And we told them that this is not going to be the last time we'll have this. Yes. What measures do we have in place to address this? The challenges are there. Schools don't have facilities. Children that are taught English by Yoruba teacher, you have to get that. So what do you expect them to face? They are not facing the exam just for their own school, that you are going to say, oh, they didn't have English teacher, so we have to treat them based on what they knew. No, there is an international standard. So definitely they will have to, by hook or by crook, they will have to find their way. And if they don't pass it, they are going nowhere.
Yeah. Because
we have conditioned the system that it's only until you have this that you can move to the next layer, which is the higher institution.
So they will do all
so you have to go all, and the parents know how much they are paying.
Next level.
We often have this mentality that we're smart, we can game the system. What are the consequences for these examination malpractices, cheating your way through school, for the Nigerian workforce and, I mean, the society at large? Oh, like they think it's a victimless crime.
No. You know, the problem is this. The person that is meant to try you is also corrupt. So because people believe that they can buy their way out of the system, laws are not our problem. The laws are there. If you cheat, this is the kind of the punishment. They are always there.
Scam.
So they will tell you that education is a scam because we have conditioned their mind not to see education as something that can empower them, as something that can give them. They believe that once you finish, the belief is that once you finish schooling, you automatically get work that you are going to do, not knowing that the innate skills that you have and that is why you see parents pushing children, go and study medicine, go and study law, go and study engineering, even people who do not have the capacity to study anything. So what you should be able to understand is that all of us must first realize our major assignment. It is not government alone that is going to address this, and it is not the teachers alone. In fact, I pity the teachers. Teachers these days, gone are those days where when your teacher is coming, you are afraid. Because of that culture that no discipline, you can't discipline any child, you can't do anything. Then the next thing is that the students are now the teachers in the classroom. The teachers have been so demoralized, apart from poor pay, apart from, and that's why, like I said, 60-70% of the people who are in teaching jobs today, they are passers-by. They take it as alternative job.
I was a teacher. A number of us, maybe doing NYC or teaching, so it's a stopgap.
So you just feel that I'm just doing this for the main time.
Okay.
Because
you're impacting people's lives.
Because the reward is not there. How many teachers are qualified? Let me shock you. Now, the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria conducted exam in May. They released the result in May, this last May. And then about 12,000 teachers took the exam, which qualifies them to give them certificates for being found to be qualified to teach. About 4,000 plus failed. Those are teachers who are to teach. 4,000 plus. And those are the people who actually opted to, because of the opportunities they may have, probably when they want to travel out and things like that.
Remember I think it was Kano State government, I'm not sure now, had
Tribunal State. Yeah, that was in 2018.
About 2,000 teachers.
I think that was around 2018.
We had the same issue in Anambra State as well.
Yeah.
Where the governor is saying that they might have to start employing people who finish from secondary school or who finish from the NYSC to ensure that they can fill up the stopgap.
The gap.
There's no space.
Most schools,
they don't have teachers.
Most schools in those axes, most schools in the interior, they use core members to fill the gap. In fact, when most of them want to get accreditation for external examinations, whether it is conducted by WAEC or whatever, what they do is that they use these core members, have been used like that in the past, to appear as at least they are teachers, but they are not full-time teachers. So, and normally if you don't have certain number of full-time teachers, you can't be accredited. Yeah. But they do it.
So in a way, it feels like they're trying to cheat the system.
They have always been cheating the system.
Let's talk about the role of parents, because I think that the role of parents is very important in this whole conversation. I remember when I was getting to school, my guardian was and still is a lecturer in a university. And I remember at the time, a number of us, if you had a connection in the university, it would maybe be able to facilitate your admission. I remember him saying to me, if you don't get the cutoff, I will never beg anybody.
And your O levels.
Yeah, he said to me, I'm never going to disrespect
do?
myself by going to beg anybody to let you into school.
Yeah.
So if you know what is good for you, don't say, oh, my daddy is my uncle is a professor in the university. You will sit down at home until you pass.
Yeah.
So I earned my admission.
I mean, my father was like that too.
But do you? That's not the general picture, because, like you mentioned, we've seen parents who you're saying will send thugs to beat people up.
And you think it's the logical thing to let your word
go through the education? Do you think that in the next few years, maybe because a number of our parents or grandparents maybe were not as educated, we're having now a larger pool of more younger people who will be more educated? Do you think that when our children have to write WAEC to be a different story, or do you see this trajectory continuing and maybe a further breakdown?
Yeah, it will continue if we don't emphasize merit in whatever that we do. And I'm going to explain to you. If somebody is coming, the system we have in place is that wherever you are coming, just show me paper and come on board.
Yeah.
It's only when that person begins to work that he can meet up. And in the process, if whether he's a lady or he's a man, if he has how to navigate through the system. They will continue to keep such individuals. They will now hire other hands that will support that person instead of allowing the person to go. The problem is that we have failed as parents. We have failed as a people. The government has failed us, but the government is not created from a vacuum. The government is the representative of the people around us. So if the government has failed, it is because the people have failed. The official who refused to carry your file because you didn't tip, it's not the government that gave instruction. The excuse has been that because we understand that the system is cheating us, so people also want to cheat the system. If you say these people should not cheat their way in the examination, they understand that if they have to wait 2 years, 3 years, by the time they eventually make their paper and they are now going out there, they will tell them the system is already structured in a way that says once you are 26, you cannot take this job again.
Yeah.
That is why when you say if you are 16, if you are not here 16 years, you cannot gain admission. Parents will go and doctor their birth certificate of their children's birth certificate because they understand that if they don't do it, that system is already built against some individuals who had no opportunity to gain admission at the right time, who may not have had money to even enter the school at that time. So what they do is that they bring down their age. And it is not just here. We have had it in the police recently that some individuals who have said, oh, you cheated, you changed your date of birth when you so you reduce your age. We were contemporary, we grew up together.
You are even my senior.
You are even my senior. Why will you be in the system when I'm already retired? So it is everywhere. Go to ministries. You see a lot of people with different birth dates because they want to be director or whatever before they go, and they keep on keeping themselves in the system. It is because they believe the fear of poverty, the fear that if we lose out from this end, we may not regain it. If we are running a system that already has a kind of institution built to address critical issues, that you know that once you finish and we have records, we have data, if immediately you are giving birth to, you are already monitored. They know your complexion, they know your height, they know your height, they know everything about you. If we have such a system, and the future of the people is assured, whether you go to formal school or you go and learn trade, today, the bulk of the people who are learning trades, who are doing entrepreneurship, they are people who have already gone to university.
Absolutely.
The people who do not go, that is why whether you're POP or you're whatever, we import people from Togo, from Benin Republic.
To come and do it.
Because our people feel that, look, this is my brother. Because you think I don't know what I'm doing. And we have to just get this thing very right. The person that you disqualified because you said this person does not know mathematics or English, you said you should drop out of school. That person will go and learn fashion designing, and the person will excel.
Absolutely.
Are you telling me there's no measurement in fashion designing? Are you telling me there is no color combination in fashion designing?
There is.
Are you telling me it's not about creativity? Go and talk about the people who left what they are doing because you said push out of the school. You don't know math. You don't know our examinations too. We have to check ourselves. What are we testing? Professor Fayoyan gave us an idea that do we even need this formal examination?
So that's what
I remember drawing and living in cockroach in school. What about
in real life? When you see cockroach, what do you do?
That's why I come in. Yeah. I remember we've had some educationists here on the show, and I've repeatedly asked this question: do you think our educational system needs to be overhauled? We need to bring something that can change the entire system. And again, we're seeing a systemic rot right now. My final question to you is, what's the way forward now? We've talked about the tribunal. You've looked at it vis-a-vis in terms of if it's going to work, it's not going to work, possibilities of it thriving. But going forward, what is the hope for the average father and mother who would love to see their child go through the educational system amidst this systemic rot?
I remember the fact that we must not see education only as the only path to excellence, to success.
Or maybe formal
education.
Yes.
Yeah, we must not see going to university, going to a tertiary institution as the only path to excellence. That's number one, to success. Number two is the fact that we must identify that our examination should be, our school system should be restructured. If you go to Finland, for instance, Finland does not have any competitive exam until the age of 16.
Yeah.
And it runs the best system of education in the world. You don't run, there is no, and that is why this minister is also saying, look, what is the essence of this GSS3 exam that we are having? Who is using the certificate to do anything? No. Why do we continue to create some kind of barrier? Once some people do not pass that GSS3 exam, what happened? They drop out. So why don't we continue to be doing promotion exam? That was what they used to have in the past. In the 80s, early 90s, you have to go from Form 1 to Form 5 before you do any external exam. But by the time we started this basic education, you have to move from primary to GSS. So when you get to GSS, before you can move to senior class, you have to do another, they call it BC, they call one BK, they call, these are, you are just complicating matters. We must de-emphasize examination. Most of the people that we have denied access to formal education, in their fields, in their trades, they are excelling. Are they not? And how did they conduct exams for their guys, for their apprentices? How?
You have to work.
You work. It is by measurement.
Yes.
It is by looking at what can you do over time.
Yes.
Somebody can spend 4 years. Somebody can spend 3 years. Yes. Somebody can spend 2 years. Yeah. That is the kind of the system that works, and that is why if you are a tailor, you are able to monitor within the period. This person has not learnt this. He still needs to learn. But when you shame somebody that it's like you are still in the same class. But when you shame somebody that you have to repeat this class, that person is demoralized forever.
Yeah.
So until we de-emphasize that culture of the exam, that is why JAMB will tell you that the exam that we conduct is not achievement test. It is ranking test. Whether it is ranking test, whether the one that WAEC and NECO conduct or BT or whatever, whether it is achievement test or ranking, we must restructure our system in a way that de-emphasizes examination. As long as you continue to have, there is a stage where you need to have the exam. You have demoralized a lot of people. There are different conditions. If a lady is on her period and she's writing exam, there are some of them who are going to have very terrible experience. If you go and write exam in such condition, are you going to pass? So why do we continue to make life very difficult for our people? Examination is not the ultimate. The most important is, do you have these skills? What can your hand do? Somebody designed a shirt and the governor invited this person. Maybe the person even had first class somewhere. Did the first class take her to the governor? No, it is what she could use her hand. These are the things that we should continue to encourage, and that is what the TVET by the minister introduced by the federal government is going to achieve. And I feel that we will be able to do better if, as parents, as churches and mosques, as religious institutions, we de-emphasize prosperity. We emphasize values, quality, merit in our system, and that we should not see that because you don't have money in your pocket, you have lost your value. That is why when you go to institutions, before you can sit in the front row, you must have resources. We need to understand that all these things will not help us.
Yeah. My final question here is, Senator Adams Oshomole said we have an unemployment problem. Yes, it's obvious. And he also said many of these graduates are not employable. Yeah. The organized private sector many times have said, look, we're in the business of making profits. We're not in the business of training. Because when they get, people say the rejection rate of CVs, just from the CVs, they know this person. Let's not waste our time. A lot of graduates, basically a lot of graduates are not employable. Is this related to what we've been discussing, exam malpractices and all of that? Yeah,
excellent. Because somebody who is going to school understand that I only need to pass my way out. If, let's say...
But your skills will be tested in real life, in the real world.
No, they know how they... you have not seen individuals. You have not seen people who are employed and they reach out to you, please, could you help me do this thing?
Absolutely.
And you keep writing for them. You keep doing their work in their place. They pay you.
Wow.
Now there is AI now. They pay you to help them to do certain things. So the problem is that we have, because they know, if any government institution is employing, you have quota system. You have the education less disadvantaged people. You have you have a lot of conditions. You have the list from the National Assembly. You have the list from the State House of Assembly. You have the list from politicians. So when that is continued to be honored, you are not going to have anything close to merit. We are not going to defeat this system. until you allow people to be appreciated by the value that they had to the system, by their competence, by their skills. I am an employer, and I've seen individuals, when you say people are not employable, I've seen a 21-year-old that came to impress based on what this person could do. And I've seen somebody who has all the certificates and could not even do anything. So until all of us, we agree to de-emphasize that certificate and we test people based on what they can do, we will not get there. Another thing that is very important and very key to all of us, and particularly to the government, is that you can't be taking this thing piecemeal. You need to also understand that when teachers are not enough in schools and they are not taught, children are not taught properly, what do you expect? The exam they are taking is not, questions are not set by their teacher. It is set from international perspective.
And it will reflect what they have learned.
So it will reflect what they have learned. So how would they not try to cheat their way into the system? You have people in Taraba the other day, while others were learning somewhere, they said the classroom collapsed while the students were writing WAEC. So we were writing SSE. So this is the problem.
You cannot give what you don't have. At the end of the day, it's a reflection of what
is a systemic failure.
As an aside, my church does not prioritize prosperity.
And I wish your church well.
Thank you.
So you can help us take it to the church also, that there must be emphasis on skills, on values in our system.
Especially the value system.
Yeah. Mojid Alabi,
but thank you so much.
It's great, always great to have you discussing about politics, the editor-in-chief, Dev Reporting. Thank you very much for your time with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Barely 5 days after the gruesome killing of the divisional police officer at Rano Local Government area of Kano State, residents of the community have expressed their displeasure over what they described as the arbitrary and continuous arrest of suspects within the community, while about 41 suspects allegedly involved in the violence that led to the killing of the DPO Baba Ali have been arrested by the police. Youths within the community say the DPO was responsible for the arrest and killing of a resident by the name Abdullahi, who lost his life in detention under controversial circumstances. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu was in the community and now files in this report.
The gruesome killing of the DPO in Rano, Kano State has continued to generate reactions across the country. The police in the state has vowed to bring perpetrators to book and has begun to clamp down on suspects. Community members expressed their displeasure over the actions of the police, justifying the acts of accusing officers of the Nigerian police force of intimidating residents through its siege on the community.
You know, so it is both in both ways. Wherever you look, whichever way you look at it. If you look at it from the side of the youth, okay, this is what they have displayed. And if you have listened to what people have been speaking up, you know, all people are condemning it, whatever may be the case. You know, it's highly condemnable. People, we don't like it.
They also allege that the slain police officer displayed acts of unprofessionalism and gross misconduct while alive, and maintains he was responsible for gross human rights violations of suspected detainees.
Yaro an ce an same shi yana guje-guje da mashin, and sai mutanen unguwa suka sauke shi suka je suka kai kara wajen shi DPO. Shi DPO shi kuma ya tura yaran shi suka je suka kamo yaro. Shi kuma DPO da aka kai shi police station, yaron a wata majiya an ce dukan shi har mai faruwa dai ta zo ta faru, ko ba haka bane ba. And da safe sai ya dauki yaro aka je aka kai yaro gidansu. Da aka kai shi gidansu su kuma dan a wata majiyar ma an ce yana zuwa kawai ajiye shi yayi, sai yan unguwa suka biyo shi. Sakamakon me an ji first kafin wannan lokacin an san ga abin da ya faru, sai aka biyo shi.
While the police has maintained a presence in the community since the incident, residents of Rano say the arrest of 41 persons within the community is a flagrant abuse of power. In Rano, Kano State, for News Central, Emmanuel Bagudu.
We, of course, would continue to bring updates. Emmanuel Bagudu, great one there with the Rano community. You wanted to say something about it?
Fine report by Emmanuel Bagudu. We'll keep tracking developments with that report.
All right, we do hope that there is proper investigation with the suspects that have been arrested and we can get to a conclusion, and it's not just a case that we can just, that will just keep going on and we don't get to know exactly what happened. We're going to break now. When we come back, we have more stories. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's now take our attention to Mokwa, where a flood disaster has killed at least 150 lives, with the numbers still rising as more bodies are recovered.
The devastating flood that struck the Niger State local government area last Thursday follows days of heavy rainfall, displacing about 3,000 people. The federal government has expressed its profound sorrow over the floods, with the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, saying that security and emergency agencies are on the search and rescue operation. Well, joining us to discuss this rather sad development is founder and CEO of Community Development and Climate Care, Richard Abubakar Umar. Good morning to you, Mr. Umar, and thank you for being here on a Monday morning. Can you quickly highlight some of the... Great. Can you quickly highlight some of the major challenges that residents are going through, and let us into the impact of what's really happened? Because what we do and what we've seen from our reporters, the site is not looking any good.
Yeah, it's actually a devastating situation down there in Rano Local Government area of Niger State, and it has been a mourning situation for the people over there. And actually, ever since this flood occurred, the local government has been proactive in being on ground, ensuring quick response, and ensuring that families are put together in one place. But the people always want to stay on their own and try to find their own shelter. But they have been trying their best, especially in the area of recovering of missing persons and bodies recovered. As at yesterday, over 151 bodies have been recovered, and even before the end of yesterday, I learned that they discovered 2 more bodies. Yeah, so I was on phone with the local government chairman, with the council chairman, and he updated me with some information that the local government has been suffering this for years now, and I got to understand that the flood is a flash flood, and actually there used to be a rail track that prevents the water from getting to the township. So actually, when the water was coming down from Mashegu area, that's Mashegu local government area, with full force, with a heavy downpour, it overpowered that particular rail track and got its way into the township, and that what caused the major devastation. And as we speak currently, though NEMA MD was on ground the day after the flood, NEMA is on ground. They've set up their camps, and the relief materials have been coming down to the people. Medical care have been getting to the people, but more bodies are being recovered. A lot of families are missing. A lot of people are looking for their loved ones. They are yet to ascertain whether if they are alive or dead, and they need to know if they were actually displaced. So these are the current situation on ground, and it has been very pathetic.
Very pathetic situation indeed. We understand this is an act of God, but let's retrace our steps back a bit. We understand it's an act of God. Are there things that could have reduced the death toll significantly that could have been done? Could you talk us through the sequence of events?
Okay, yeah, from my discoveries, I got to understand that there's a rain track, and a lot of people built their houses on this rain track. And Mokwa local government is a local government that houses the Jebba Dam, and it's not far from Kainji Dam. So, but that was not the situation. It wasn't the dam. But the people, I got to know that they built their houses on this rain track, and those are the most affected by this flood. So if we had a proper urban planning in the local government headquarters of Mokwa, we will have averted a lot of deaths as we speak, because if you notice, the water divided the township into two, doing away with the major bridge where the water normally follows, and just splitted them into two. So if the urban development guys were able to create more awareness and move people or stop people from building on that particular track, we wouldn't have had more casualties the way we did. And again, last year, I believe the governor was in Mokwa, and the issue of gully erosion, the issue of flood was brought before him, and I believe they awarded a contract to address that situation. I think the deputy governor was on ground together with the DG NEMA. He was even saying that last week at council, they were discussing about Mokwa local government, but unfortunately, the incident had just occurred. So you see, those proactive measures, if they were put in place and all those water channels were properly constructed, I believe the devastation wouldn't have been this much. And though globally, flood water is now seen as a natural resource for countries that really have water resources like raw water, they actually find a way of harnessing flood water into useful resources. But unfortunately, it is causing devastation here and taking lives and properties.
You speak about contracts that have been awarded to be able to deal with certain issues, but there's an NGO called the Environmental Watch that has criticized the federal government. They say that 5 months into the fiscal year and contracts have not yet been allocated. They criticize Engineer Dave Umahi for focusing solely on the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway and not being able to implement certain projects that would help with the construction of roads and gutters, in the state. What's your response to those who blame the federal government, blame the Minister of Works because they say that he hasn't implemented this, whereas other MDAs have allocated, they've started to implement their budget for 2025?
Yeah, it's, well, I wouldn't blame them for blaming federal government, because what the contract I was just talking about being awarded was by the state government. It was the effort of the former governor of Niger State. But be it as it may, the incident in Mokwa didn't just start. It has been there over the years. There have been media reports on TVC, on other media channels. But even 2 years ago, there was a media report I saw 2 years ago on Mokwa itself. So I believe these are avenues to draw attention for budgets appropriation, because we cannot be sitting down here having headlines every day and MDAs that are charged with these responsibilities. I believe NEMA report should have passed through the Ministry of Works, Ministry of Water Resources, and other relevant MDAs, Humanitarian Affairs and Co., to look at it and say, okay, communities in these red flag zones deserve all the necessary attention they need. But unfortunately, that is not the case. So when you see political will or government attention going to a particular area, you feel it's more politically motivated than people driven. So I wouldn't blame the NGO for blaming the federal government for negligence or lack of proactiveness in taking action. And I call on even the Federal Ministry of Environment, NEMA, NIMET, to see how best they can have this synergy of synchronizing their data on drawing attentions on who does what, who addresses what, because they need to have like a multi-sectoral committee, not just leaving it at the decks of NEMA, but beyond NEMA, so that we say, okay, what caused this flood? How can we address it? You carry it in your own budget. You carry it in this year's budget. Then we have a human-driven budget, not a politically driven budget. So that's my opinion about that. And I believe they are listening and they should really, really take action so that we can avert this. Because most times I'm of the opinion that it's like NEMA and other MDAs, state MDAs, I'm happy that disasters happen when they can't even take proactive actions to address them. They shouldn't wait for disaster to happen. There are preventive measures to disasters.
Which is what?
Disaster.
I mean, what you've just said now leads me to my next question, because like you're saying that it's not something new, these flash floods. Unfortunately, lives have been lost. What do we do to ensure that we don't see a reoccurrence of this situation? Once we can control the flash flood, the aftermath is something that can be maybe reduced or mitigated by proper preparation. So what can we do differently to ensure that we don't have this story reported in the next few months? Because there will still be rainfalls. We're just really getting into the rainy season.
Well, I feel they already have the data of where all this flash flood or dam floods occur annually. They have the data. They know the red spots. So I believe it should be a bottom-up approach where the federal government meets with the local governments as first responders to help address this situation. Come up, like, for example, now there's a committee in place in Mokwa local government that's handling relief materials, ensuring that the people are well catered for. The MDAs at the federal level should liaise with the ones at the state level and at the local government level. Don't just stop at the state level. Get down to the local government. We could resettle these people. We could move them to a camp pending when the waters get normal. We could resettle the people. Okay. Like, for example, in the state local government, I saw where N Hyperdeck resettled a particular community, that's the Keto community. I was down there 2 years ago when I was running a documentary on the same flood, because there was an early flood the last 2 years.
Okay.
And when we got to the communities, we discovered that most of the community themselves don't want to relocate to these camps. So it's a two-way thing where we need to create more awareness, we need to create more sensitization down there and make them understand that these are temporary disasters and they could temporarily move upstream and ensure that they get what they call it, attention pending when the waters go down.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Omar, for speaking with us, and well done for the work you do. Hopefully, we would connect with you again and find out what the updates are. But thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice having you.
We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll be taking a look at 2 years after. we started the third year in the current administration. We'll look at the economic value, not forgetting to the impact on each and every citizen. Do stay with us. The statement, "Subsidy is gone," will continue to live for a very long time in the minds of every single Nigerian. Remember that statement? Also remember the declaration of the floating of the Naira, the policies. And we've seen massive shifts as well. Also call them the necessary reforms. Others say they've deepened hardship. So where do the facts truly fall economically in Nigeria?
In the President's May 29 statement in commemoration of his second year in office, he acknowledged the hardship Nigerians have had to endure, and also noted that the renewed hope policies have helped many out of poverty. Though the World Bank seems to think otherwise, as it even projects that more Nigerians will fall into poverty by 2027. We will be discussing what's working and what's not. We'll also find out what more about the Tribunal administration has for Nigerians for the next 2 years to better the economy. Join us to answer all these critical questions this morning at Breakfast Central. And the state of the nation, also with special focus on the economy, is a special advisor to Mr. President on Economic Affairs in the Office of the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Dr. Tokwe Faswa. Well, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the invite. It's good to be here.
Let's start with the economy. Mr. President, in a statement on the 29th of May, said that the worst is over.
Absolutely.
What evidence do you have to back that up, that the worst is over? Because Nigerians on the street are looking at inflation at a high level. It's in double digits, and then you're saying the worst is over. It's kind of hard to reconcile it with the reality on ground, the lived experience of ordinary Nigerians?
I think the issue is that, or the fact is that the kind of reforms that Mr. President embarked upon as at May 29, 2023 to date are such reforms that you can't do them twice. You can only shoot once. And of course, Mr. President shot those bullets at the time that it needed to be done. Right at the point of his being inaugurated, he walked away from the subsidy thing. And what that has done, basically is to actually clean up that sector. Today we're talking about Dangote Refinery, we're talking about Bua almost coming up, we're talking about Walter Smith in Imo State, we're talking about other refineries in Edo State, in River State, and more initiatives coming up. We're talking about $13.5 billion in new investments, potentially in the oil sector. We're talking about, Nigerian indigenous oil companies taking over some of the multinationals, like Shell, like Mobil and Co. Seplat is now, Mobil is now Seplat. Renaissance has taken over Shell and Co. Nigerians getting involved in that space. And I think that actually really trickles down to the people of this country, So we're talking about new investments in that area. We're talking about new employment. As an economist, I try to do things differently. And the fact is that in Nigeria, those who get into better fortune hardly speak up because they don't want to draw attention to themselves. So we hear a lot of the issues with people who the policy has affected sometimes negatively, which are many people. For example, the price of fuel went up. Inflation went up to 38%, but now back to 23.7%. With the trajectory that inflation is going to continue to taper down. So we're hoping that inflation going down, of course, directly affects people. It takes people like us who are economists and maybe in the system to be able to describe exactly what the phenomenon that's going on is, So you don't expect the market woman to be able to tell you how that inflation affects them or how the reduction of inflation this time around affects them. But it's affecting them positively. We hear that the price of rice has gone down from about 110,000 to 58,000, in some places 55,000 as a result of the policies. And so we're hoping that food being the major driver of inflation in Nigeria and food prices going down, including vegetable oil, beans, and so on, the staples. This is going to be a good thing for Nigerians. We're already beginning to see that. And the other aspect of the Naira, so what the Naira floating, quote and unquote, at that time, because I believe we're back to the era of managed floating with central bank intervening sometimes as another player in the market. So central bank has taken on the stance of, look, they can go into the market and buy. They can go into the market and sell money to banks to ensure a certain band is maintained or ensure that there's no major crisis. But we see a floating of the Naira swinging from 1,500 to about 1,600 and so on. So, but I think one thing critical, so I can allow you to speak, is that that has happened is that the two major policies has released a whole lot of money to the subnationals. We see states now getting twice what they used to get pre-May 29, 2023 in Naira terms. Many of them have been able to double their IGR. We have a lot of Naira liquidity to affect the people with. So now it's just
but
the time.
The real value of the Naira is not the same.
Absolutely given, but minding that the fact that the Naira is our sovereign currency, not the dollar. So there's a lot we can do with the Naira. For example, pay people's salaries. A minimum wage law was reached, whereby right now we're talking about 70,000 minimum wage in Nigeria. Anyone paying less than that for standard employment is not doing well. In fact, this morning I shared something on social media where we heard that a certain filling station pays their people 10,000 naira. because sometimes these are political issues. The owner of the place may want to make a political statement to say, oh, the president and the economy is really bad. But the reason why inflation got to 34.8% in December was because everybody has added to the prices of their goods. Every invoice is a lot higher, except for businesses that are not viable. I understand sometimes people are in businesses that are unviable. Understood, but for businesses that are still surviving, most people, if not everybody, is charging a whole lot more than they used to charge 2 years ago. And that the first charge for them should be that they should pay their staff better than you can't expect someone to survive on 2 years ago salary, because we know the effect of inflation on some goods. For example, agri sector, the food sector, on some goods, inflation is as high as 200%. It is admitted, we understand that. Minding the fact that when that inflation was really peaking, the truth was that a lot of people were adding to their goods just on a whim. They were adding prices just on a whim. You wake up, you don't like the face of the president, you add to your prices. And so it was a struggle for us to say, you know, how do we wrestle this inflation? Given that the way they came was kind of unorthodox, you know, it's not what you're going to read in a textbook. This is Nigeria. People take decisions for different reasons. Sometimes you get emotional, sometimes for political reasons. Sometimes people increase prices just because they can. Because it was a seller's market. You know, take it or leave it. I'm going to put my price, well, that's what I want to sell. If you like, buy. If you like, don't buy. I'll keep it, knowing that for a fact that most of the goods that we're talking about are essentials like food, you know, like drinks, things that affect people, even much less for clothes, but for the very basic stuff that people need.
All right. I mean, you've highlighted a number of areas. You've talked about the minimum wage that has been implemented, which is a great idea, or it's a great action by the current administration. Unfortunately, a number of people are yet to see the implement. It has taken much longer than expected for that to be implemented. The Judiciary Union, Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, were meant to go on a strike as a result. Their bodies, organizations, and institutes that still complain about that not being implemented. Away from that as well, if we're looking at inflation, you talked about the current rate being at 23.7%.
Right.
December 2024, we had an all-time high. So it goes up to about 34.8%. So if we're looking at these facts, also SBM Jollof Index, what they do is they analyze how much it will cost to cook a pot of jollof. They said that in 6 months is 19%. I mean, these are just one of the things. Again, you say that the people who are maybe positively impacted by this are not coming out to speak up. But we get to speak with the majority of the masses. And I do not think that, I mean, we've seen a lot of their complaints about not being able to feel the impact of these numbers and the data that you're sharing with us. Even in terms of insecurity, we're seeing insecurity being a factor that has affected agriculture, and the impact of, you know, being able to, the food basket of the nation has suffered from insecurity in the past few months. So where would you say that there is a disconnect?
Okay, so the point is that we, you know, in matters of macroeconomics, and when the government does this level of reforms, 2 years is not enough time for you to begin to call, you know, and say, is everybody enjoying? Minding the fact, of course, in nowhere in the world does everybody enjoy anyway. Even in some of the bigger countries that we look up to, there are people sleeping on the streets, there are people really, really suffering. Sometimes they may be born out of their own actions or inactions or what have you, you know, but it's the way the world is. It's never been that everybody will enjoy. Sometimes when we say, everybody, people say, oh, Nigeria has so many resources, nobody should be hungry in this country. Well, there are no models to show where nobody is enjoying. Even in the Scandinavian countries where they practice social democracy and there's so much. In fact, the Scandinavian country, 35% of workers work for government, are paid every month, whether they like it or not. That creates a flaw for the economy and so on. So 2 years is a time to review what has been done and know whether there are major changes that we need to make. What this has shown is just that from my own perspective, this 2 years' time is a time for us to now say, you know what, how is this thing affecting the people? We have done what we need to do. We can see industries repositioning. Do you know, in fact, one of the accusations that I've heard is that, oh, this government has made it such that only the corporate sector is making money. And indeed, Yes, the corporate sector is making money. Companies that declared losses at the end of 2022, 2023, some of them are declaring record profits now. From telecoms, you there, MTN and co complaining. Now they've declared record profit. Banking sector keeps declaring all those kind of profits and so on. And even some of the manufacturing industry like Guinness, like MBL PLC, MB PLC, Nigeria Breweries and co, we have declared the record profits in this year. Now the thing is that first of all, let them take care of their staff, and that's why some of us are here to say, you know what, they can do a whole lot better. And not only them, even some of the SMEs, small and medium scale enterprises, because that's where the real numbers are. Not even nano micro enterprises. We want to sensitize them that, you know what, you can't pay your people at the level that you were paying them in 2023. Let's ensure. So that actually out of the hands of the government, the only thing the government can do is to sensitize and to prod them and to do some moral suasion to say, you know what, do better by your people. Income levels have to shift outward majorly. Wage levels and so on have to shift outward majorly. So yes, SBM Jollof Index and co. And the only problem I have with that, because and is also that it depends on which indices they are working with. It depends on the components of their index. So I think that if they did the Jollof Index again, with rice price where it is today, they should declare a deflation in the Jollof Index, because it should go down majorly. And indeed, the price of staples are falling. How do we ensure that the fall in those prices, of course, shouldn't continue ad infinitum? We're not looking at creating deflation. What we all want is a disinflation, a reduction in the rate of inflation. And of course, the World Bank did say that they expect us to have an average inflation of 22% by the end of this year, meaning that our target of achieving 15% inflation by December is feasible. We could even do better than that, so that we can average out for the whole year and achieve 22%. So I think that, like Mr. President said, I think the worst is over. We can't deregulate the fuel sector twice. We can't. It has been done, and what that has done is to actually release a lot of money to the state level, because that's where the people live. Mr. President is very big on local government autonomy. That's where the tire hits the tarmac. And I think going forward, I think it's going to be good for most Nigerians.
You've talked about in the past 2 years, it's not enough to have achieved what, is set to be achieved. And you've talked about, you've compared to foreign countries as well. The president has 2 more years to go. In fact, starting from the 29th, he has gone into the 3rd year, whether we like it or not. But is 2 years enough to maximize and reach all of this? Are you certain that 2 years is enough? And in the next 2 years, Nigerians will be able to say yes,
absolutely,
all what you said you've been able to achieve? Or is it another case of, just putting it out there that we need 2 more years, but it's starting to look like the attention is now driven towards extending for another 4 years, where mild or subtle campaigns have begun?
Oh, well, the thing is, if we actually bring in the politics side of things, it gets a bit confusing, because already you can see political movements are beginning, and many of them try to...
But isn't that distracting?
Well, not Mr. President, and doesn't distract the economic team. All we can do now is to say, okay, it focuses us better to say, you know what, how are our people, the real people of Nigeria, getting the benefit of the reforms? Minding the fact that there are not just only 2 reforms, there's also the tax reform. That's a major reform. Hopefully, we're waiting for the assent of Mr. President after the National Assembly has submitted their harmonized position. And that policy itself is also pro-poor. One of the things you see in the tax policy, at least one of the things I can speak about, is that the federal government used to get 15% of the VAT collections in this country. We're reducing that to 10% and taking that 5% to add to what the local governments get. So the states are now going to get 55% of VAT, the local government will get 35% of VAT, and so on. So I think that it focuses us, because we also don't expect that Nigerians will wait for the whole 2 years. The elections are taking place somewhere in the middle of that. But I think that what it focuses on is to say, you know what, this minimum wage, how is it working? We know that the youth corpers now get 77,000 every month. That's quite a lot of money. It's okay for them. And also recently it was announced that students of technical schools will get 45,000 naira every month. What that is supposed to help with is to divert attention to technical education, to ensure that even children from poor backgrounds can go into technical education knowing that they are cared for. And that is going to be very, very salutary, because like the UK, like Europe, you will find a situation where we begin to place more value on technical education rather than just going to university for the prestige purposes. Lastly, let me say that also one of the key decisions that was taken recently at the Federal Executive Council is the Buy Nigeria policy. And I was just seeing now that I think the World Bank commented on that, and was it the IMF? Or
the IMF.
The IMF commented on that and said the Buy Nigerian policy is going to be helpful in the achievement of some of our, and of course it's what the whole world is looking at. We're actually in a time of economic nationalism of sort, but every country has to think for itself. And in buying Nigeria, patronizing Nigeria, using Nigerian contractors, placing more value, that helps us to capacitate from the ground up and use our own money to reboot our own economy.
Okay. And the government also has to lead by example.
I'd like us to talk about Buy Nigeria shortly, but I do want us to still come back a little, to touch a little more on, the reforms lifting people out of poverty. I don't know, was it IMF or World Bank? No, it was IMF, but this time the World Bank had said that 30.9% Nigerians live below the international poverty lines. There are also reports that poverty in the rural areas increased to 75.5%. So what are the plans?
I'm not even sure the World Bank has the capacity to measure exactly what's going on. One of our problems in Nigeria is what I would call data sovereignty. I mean, if we wait for the World Bank to come and do our own data and know exactly who's poor in Nigeria and where they're poor, we've already missed it. And we're moving against that to capacitate the National Bureau for Statistics to be able to get those data themselves. Because again, what I realized was even the World Bank, I interact with the World Bank in Nigeria, which the guys who are on ground, sometimes they differ in their position. If you look at the NDP that was presented, the Nigeria Development perspective that was presented by the World Bank in Nigeria, was a lot more positive. They even commended the government for the growth rate. They commended for the growth rate that we had, intrinsically the highest growth rate in the last 10 years. As at 2024, 3.4% growth intrinsically on encumbered growth for the last 10 years. So those guys in Washington saying that more people are going to be poor in Nigeria, I'm not sure they know what they're talking about.
But when they say positive things, the government celebrates.
Well, we look at it. No, we don't just celebrate. We would look at the veracity of the information and see whether it aligns with the current reality of where we are. We're not deceiving ourselves. At the end of the day, we should know more about our country than any international organization. And my own perspective,
So if you don't believe in the numbers, and you don't think that the World Bank and these international,
I'm just saying that we can do a better work.
So how do we get this data here?
Exactly. So let's rely more on the job of the NBS. And National Bureau for Statistics. Let's capacitate that organization more. Give them more better funding. That's my own advocacy.
But the NBS also came out with something that wasn't really appreciated. When they talked about the issues with the economy and how it's affecting Nigerians as well, in one of their reports, time would fail me if I have to go through all of that.
Well, yeah, but
would you also say that the NBS is equally?
No. Well, anyway, from my perspective, see, an economist, what we do or how we are trained is to interrogate every position, for good or bad. So even if something is looking too good, we check and say, are you sure this is true? And we have to be logical about every scenario. I just believe that more people, if we're moving a whole lot of money to the state government, and I would keep giving this example. Just last week I was in Cross River State in Calabar, and they were graduating about 1,500 people who they had trained in MSME and all of those, and how to run their organization. And 500 of them were retirees and pensioners. And for the first time, I heard them say, they have to commend their governor, Governor Basio too, who happened not even to be there that day. To commend him for the fact that they were now getting their emoluments on time, their retirement benefits on time. There was a 15-year interregnum where things were really tough for them and so on. Things seem to, and the reason why that's so is because the states have the liquidity to pay those people in Naira. Minding also, Benga, that, you know, in the year 2024, Nigerian states were able to pay down 32% of their total loans. I think one of the states in the north, is it Kebbi or Zamfara, actually paid down 97% of the loan. Those states paid over 80% of their loans. What that has done is, you know, if you had an organization and all of a sudden you're able to clear your creditors down by 80%, it frees up your balance sheet. Your balance sheet is looking suddenly fantastic with a lot of cash position and very few people chasing you to come and pay their money. What that means is that the states can actually borrow more for developmental projects. In fact, with the amount of Naira going to the state times 3 of what they used to get, you know, there's a lot of liquidity for them, and we should be expecting an explosion of local infrastructure, which will be done by mostly Nigerian companies, putting money in the hands of our people, reducing the poverty level, and actually beginning to deliver the expected prosperity to every Nigerian.
All right, let's
I want to take you back to some things you said before my colleague moves on to debt. You emphasized as one of the achievements of this administration, local government autonomy. On paper, fantastic initiative. It frees the local government is closest to the people and it gives them more money. And the fact that the government has saved all this money from the removal of subsidy goes down to the federating units. But implementation, nothing seems to be happening. I mean, the Supreme Court even came out and said, look, the states should enforce local government autonomy, but everybody seems to be refusing Mr. President's order. Yes. When are we going to get that implemented? And number two, going back to the jollof index, I mean, if you want to have jollof, you would not eat only rice. You emphasize on the rice. You need tomato.
The rice is a major
you need condiments. You need protein.
I know. But the rice, you know the way indexes work. It depends on where you put most of the percentages, how you spread it. But clearly, you know, because of course this idea of jollof index, you know, remember we have a jollof war with Ghana and Senegal. Who was jollof? Nigeria seems to be the one bullying the whole world.
Well, you will not eat jollof. Only rice.
Yeah, but it's a major. The rice is a major part. And if you look at how the price of rice was able to come down, the government had to say, you know what, let people then import because, and of course, some of the farmers are saying, oh, you know, you guys are squeezing us out. You know, it's no longer profitable. Well, fair enough, but I also saw another tweet by someone who happens to be a farmer up north, and the guy was actually urging his colleagues to hoard the rice paddy. He said, you know what, let's go and hoard, let's hoard this thing until the prices go up. So there's that intricate competition in any economic environment whereby there are people who want to maximize. The government is there in the middle, caring about the people, thinking, what do we do about the people? There are people who also need to survive. So we're balancing the act between those who need to survive, Nigerians, and those who want to maximize their profits just because we say we're running a free market system. You know, so what do we do? But okay, so the government said, you know what, okay, this rice issue, I was thinking at some point, could Nigerians ever have enough of rice? You know, I've seen people, unfortunately that time, during the NSAS time, people who looted several bags of rice and then they will keep those rice in their house and then they'll come back and tell you how they are hungry in their family and all of that. I'll be like, you know, will we ever have enough? So this time around, this government has been able to prove that there are things we can do to affect some of those staples that we thought we could never conquer. So the price of rice is being conquered, you know. So what was your second? You mentioned about the local government. So actually there was a point in time, in fact right now, the process is still going on. Of course, before you release money to the local government, so that the system doesn't break down, there has to be signatories to the account. And so the first thing that Mr. President was able to do is to ensure that every state in this country has been able to conduct local government elections. Whether they are perfect or not, that's it. But they were able to conduct local government elections. There are local government chairmen in every local government, almost every, if there's one or two that are missing, you know, in this country. And so first of all, you have to get that. They have to sign their mandate in central bank so that when the money is released, we know who's signing out the money and so on. The state governments, of course, being that they understand what's going on, also will not easily release that mandate to the local government. They want to have a say and continue to have a say in what happens. But the political rapprochement will be made when the time comes.
But time is ticking. People's lives are being affected.
No. Okay, so what's happening is that the states are still probably administering some of those monies. But like I said, the states are getting so much more, and that money is beginning to seep to the people where it matters. When the local governments come, we'll also see an acceleration of that anti-poverty policy, as it were. We'll see, but that's the first of all is that the operational issues will be dealt with at central bank. Then, secondly, the political rapprochement will be. If the Supreme Court has ordered something, eventually the states will have to comply.
I mean, just as an aside, to further buttress something my colleague had said earlier about the criticism against the NBS, one of them would be the rebasing of the CPI, where they had said that a number of the reductions that were, put forward were not reflective and indicative of what the current market reality is. But I think that would be another conversation.
It's not another conversation. It's a conversation we need to have. So the CPI has been rebased, and essentially, look, the whole idea of rebasing is this: number one, that understand that look, you cannot have the same index, the same base for the index over too long a period, because so many things are changing. So part of it is that, look, like right now, before this MBS used to, in the food basket from which the CPI is pronounced, they used to have about 760 items there, food items and different items, food, electronics, what have you. Now they've increased that to 900 and something, about 950, which is remarkable because the more robust that basket is, the better the numbers they're getting out of it. So we should actually look at what they've done and their methodology, the new methodology. And then there were some international frameworks which they follow. And those international frameworks, they keep on being innovated. So they have actually been able to step up to the latest level of international, frameworks to be able to say this is how they do it elsewhere. We are usually slow. We're waiting for our GDP rebasing. And no matter what anybody says, let the MBS will do his work. Of course, there are always the critics. There are political critics. There are people that, if the numbers are looking good, they don't want to hear about it. So when the CPI, when the inflation dropped from 34% to 24%, say, oh, this and that, the thing doesn't, then do your own, if you can have the capacity. But remember that, the MBS is the biggest organization in Nigeria that is capacitated to be able to get something at least close. I'm not saying that the processes are perfect, but at least they're doing their work, and we should allow them to do their work. And we're waiting for the GDP rebasing because we ought to have rebased more than 5 years ago. Okay, we have to be able to capture the dynamism of this economy, because this is the growing economy is much more dynamic than in the US, in the UK, for example, which I'm fairly used to. Things will change in a slower fashion because they have achieved so much. The number of skyscrapers coming up in Nigeria are a lot more than the skyscrapers coming up in the UK for now. And I measure some of those things. I read them. I know what's going on in those places. So we grow faster. Our real estate is growing faster. Our agri is growing faster. Even our population is growing faster, meaning that our economic activities here are growing faster, or will grow faster than most of those economies that are matured and have plateaued, so to speak.
Real estate is growing faster, but it's really shocking a lot of Nigerians.
Yes, sometimes it's artificial pricing. People, I see the criticisms on social media. People will say, why are you selling a house for $5 million in Nigeria when, what are you offering?
Yes.
The same money would do a lot more in the US, even in the United States. If we went to places like Houston, you buy houses of $300,000 and so on. So it's also part of it. All of us are economic players. All the opinions will shape how that is going. However, I get your point. I think what your point is that, look, there has to be deliberate action to protect the people who are growing. In the UK, they always talk about getting on the ladder. Someone who has just left university, who has worked for maybe 5 years or so, should begin to think about, oh, can I get a flat somewhere, a small flat? Even you start with we start with a studio flat, a room and parlor. So how many of those units are we having, or people are because in spite of these high prices, if you come to a place like Abuja, more than 200,000 houses, the last time I checked, are vacant. Many of them houses either vacant or abandoned estates because the pricing is too much. The developer went bust or something. Yeah. This is we need to tell ourselves that beyond making money, we need to start to plan for our people, our population, the young people as they grow, because the way it happens elsewhere is that the young people get the small houses, then they now look for bigger houses as they get families. As they grow old, they come back to the small houses. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? So there has to be a deliberate plan in that respect.
Let's look at the inflation rate. I mean, just this morning, we saw that Nigeria's import bill has risen by 63% in 1 year.
I know. I don't. Where did you get that number from?
That's
my own. My own analysis, I'm compiling that presently, is that import fell about 20% for 2024.
Okay, fine. So we have 63, it fell by
64%, 63% is a low lot of increase, import bill. So I'd like to know the component of that increase.
Okay, good.
Or maybe they're talking about Naira. Okay, now, Naira. I think exactly.
Naira.
So the factor is the depreciation of the Naira. Okay, so every time when you see such high numbers, usually it's the depreciation of the Naira that affects it. That it would have grown much more, exactly. If the import itself in dollar terms hadn't fallen, if import was constant between that last year and the year they're talking about, maybe 2024, okay, if import was constant, then it would have been 100% increase. Okay, but because it wasn't constant, import itself in dollar terms fell, but the Naira depreciation affected it and boosted the Naira value of import. Then you can land at 64%.
Let's break it down to the average Nigerian who's watching us now. I mean, the association who deals on sales of Tokumbo cars, like we say. I recall 2013, you were able to buy a Corolla for about 1.3, 1.4. And just recently, the association came together and said that they are not selling because of these policies. That same car that was bought for 1.3, 1.4 in 2013, 2014, now goes for 9 million naira. Do you think that it could be as a result of the fact that this administration is doing way too much in trying to see how they can, balance the economy? However, it is impacting heavily on the pockets of the citizens. Don't you think that I think we should be addressing things
the philosophy
at a time?
No, not at all.
Because there's electricity tariff.
There's
There's the car issue that people,
I get your point.
A young man at 22 or 23 cannot buy a car anymore.
I'm not sure the way our economic history, I didn't buy a car when I was 23. I probably bought my first Tokumbo car when I was like 28 or thereabouts.
But it's not possible anymore today.
Well, it depends on where you're working. I was working in a bank, which you consider as a good job at that time, But let's no new graduate think about buying a car. I think that some of it that we're supposed to speak to ourselves about some of these issues. There's absolutely nothing wrong, even in the UK, in the US. Well, in the US, where they have a big transportation problem, So I think the thing is to be like the UK, where they have a working public transport system that doesn't even require you to buy a car very quickly. I think we should do that. No, I think some of the states are trying their best. Like Niger State, like of course Lagos State is the standard. Many of them are investing in public transport system now as a way of giving back the subsidy to their people, so that you can actually use those public transport systems and pay next to nothing. The real problem is also that psychologically, are we ready for that? In this Lagos, I don't want to preempt you. I probably say some of us sitting here have not used the blue line before, or even the red line.
It doesn't cover the areas I go to.
But then, even for people where they cover the areas where they are, they probably won't be seen. They won't want to be seen in those things. I use it myself. I use sometimes, of course, to move from VI to Mamu to Mile 2. I use the blue line. In Abuja, I use the metro. I've used it at least 4 times to move from central area, which is World Trade Center, to the airport. hardly would I see any of my colleagues doing that, or any person who's around my age mate or who we have been colleagues sometime in the past. They won't do that. So it's easy for us to complain about this, but the point is, are we also ready? So I think that we should also encourage ourselves in that regard. So the thing is this, that the philosophy is that this administration is trying really to reduce our import dependency. Okay? We're trying to do that. So the Tokumbo index may not be a good barometer to measure by, because we want us to slow down a little bit on this. But on the other side, we expect that people should now be earning at least twice or thrice what they were earning 2 years ago. Meaning that we're looking at a different reality here. If the government has increased corporate salary from 33,000 to 77,000, that's almost times, that's more than times 2, more than 100%. I probably feel about 130%. The same 130% was achieved for minimum wage from 30,000 to 70,000. So what it's telling us is that organizations should be ready to pay their staff about 100% more than they were earning. And so it changes, it recalibrates everything. You probably would have to wait a little bit longer to put that money together. But also what the government is trying to do is to have a credit system. So unlike here, where you have to look for all of the Tokumbo car money to go and pay someone to be able to buy your car at 9 million naira, the Corolla you mentioned. But the Corolla is also not a very good index, because the Corolla is very popular. It's used for Uber and all of those things. So there's
I could mention many of them.
Okay. But yeah, no, I think we need to notice that.
Right.
You know, but instead of that, you know, so you probably wait a little longer to buy that same Corolla now, as it were. But at least we're also encouraging the credit culture, just like it happens abroad, where you don't have to put all that money down. You probably have to give them 10% of the money.
I hope we can start to see situations where they're buying new Prado vehicles for government officials, because if the
I came here in an Uber, so there's always that very interesting thing. Yes, of course, I think that's been a major slowdown of that. You know, for someone like me,
so we're going to see senators,
I heard this chap, I think Bello El-Rufai, the member of House of Representatives, El-Rufai's son, saying something. I saw something going on social media yesterday where was actually saying that, look, all of this budget that's coming, and you know, every year people, parasitals are buying cars, doing the same thing and all of that, that they should slow them down. I'm 110% in support of that. Of course, you know, the problem is that the political system, the executive does not want to muzzle the legislative. If you do that too much, there'll be a blowback and all of that. Then they don't want to do that. They want to make the judiciary also independent and so on. But I think that social media, the media like you as well, and every average Nigerian, everybody is a reporter now. All of our opinions is what will form how everything progresses in this economy. I'm very much for that. I think that will be fairly frugal, you know. I think we could be a little bit more frugal.
Well,
going
I mean,
forward.
the frugality is subject to debate, but let's talk about the debt and Nigeria's debt profile. You've inferred that, you know, we're doing better with our debt management. We've just repaid the debt, the IMF loan, the emergency loan that was collected in April 2020 to the tune of $3.4 billion. And yet there's a fresh request for $24 billion. So
no, there's none. The thing is that it's a 3-year plan. And the plan is just to say that's the limit, you know. So basically say that you cannot borrow anything that is not inside that plan in terms of the different categories, whether it was federal, state, local government. You can't do more than that. It doesn't mean that you're going to take all of that loan, all of the items that have been listed, number one. Number two is that, mind you, even if you get a loan from World Bank or IMF or all those kind of people, they usually don't release all the money at once. They always monitor the money. They release in bits. They monitor some more. They release in bits and so on. You know, so that is just the expenditure framework. It is not a new request to go and borrow, unfortunately, as has been presented to the public as if, oh, Tinubu wants to borrow the money. No, it's not going to happen. You know, so in fact, this year we're taking only 1.3 billion of fresh loan dollars. 1.3 billion dollars of fresh loan is the only thing we're taking this year, 2020.
And people are wondering, why are we taking loans?
And I'm talking about the foreign loans. Of course, there'll be the local one. For example, we issued the Sukuk bond of $300 billion and naira, and you know, which was oversubscribed by about 800%. We ended up getting, 2.5 trillion naira.
So it's not a thing of concern if the IMF says that they are raising red flags about our, borrowing our public.
I mean, and also people. I think, I don't know whether it depends on what numbers they're looking at, given the fact that they themselves are a lender. They also do a bit of lending like this one. Why would they be raising a red flag where we just paid what most countries have not been able to do? Because these are loans taken in 2020 when COVID had locked down every economy, and by 2025 Nigeria is repaying. When some other countries are defaulting, I was looking at which country was that, and they say, Ukraine, they're in problem anyway. But Ukraine was saying that, look, they are going to default on all their loans because they just can't afford to. They have to get. Argentina has defaulted more than 9 times.
Knowing the conditionalities IMF attaches to loans, and if you look at all around Africa and the examples of people that have taken IMF loans, they never come out right. So why? Because of the conditionalities. It was because of IMF loans that we removed the subsidy on electricity, petrol, and so many other issues.
Do you know that we've taken any loan from IMF per se, apart from this COVID loan that we repaid? Nigeria is clean. We're totally clean as if concerned, because of course IMF will give you a raft of, but whether they give you loan or not, they'll always want to advise you about how, because the IMF World Bank was set up in 1945, after the Second World War, because they felt, the big leaders of the world in those days felt there's a need for us to have some global bodies that would actually check every country and ensure that one country does not drag the other one down as a result of financial mismanagement and what have you. Of course, you can criticize whether, there are Rockefeller organizations or whatever it was that they are. But, but they will always advise us about one thing or the other. Depends on whether we want to take the advice. Talking about deregulation of sectors, which sort of affects us, I believe that that process itself will benefit from some of these kind of discussions that we're having. And I think that when the government needs to slow down, we know when we need to slow down, we will take it easy. And Mr. President will always push back if it's going to affect the people too adversely. I think that we should also try and just consolidate on the positives and see how some of the reforms of the government that have been taken in the last few years will deliver for the people.
Nigerians really just want the country to work. When they keep asking questions and pushing back, it's because at the end of the day, want Nigeria to work. When it works, it benefits every one of us.
Well, everybody also has to improve on their productivity. We all have to be productive. Look at the reality. Our friends who have jackpot will tell you some of them are working in 2 different places, 3 different places. If you suggest that to a Nigerian, he doesn't want to hear that. But let everybody just face the mirror, tell themselves the truth, and be more productive for the benefit of the whole economy.
Well, the argument about whether it really is about our productivity, unfortunately, we've run out of time, so we can delve into that. Dr. Akpoti-Uduaghan, thank you so much for joining us, the Special Advisor to the President, Economic Affairs in the Office of the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you for your time. We'll go on a break, and when we return from the break, we'll be reviewing the front pages of the newspapers. Stay with us. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now we're reviewing the front pages of the paper, and we have journalist Habib Arana joining us this morning. Good morning. Happy New Month.
Good morning.
Good to have you.
Veteran journalist.
Please. Yes.
Journalist of timber and caliber. Please.
And it's good to see you looking different. We want to see you in
younger. You look younger.
Maybe because it's Monday.
And it was like I saw you at the commissioning of the 30-kilometer road.
No.
Okay, you were not there.
No.
Oh, okay.
I was not invited.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's get to the front pages of the paper. I'd like to start with the Nigerian Tribune. On the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, many stories are there. Okay, and the big story on the front page is manufacturers lament mounting challenges. They say 767 manufacturing companies shut down in 2023, over 18,000 jobs lost in 2024. Cost of imported raw materials surged by 118%, spending on alternative energy hit 1.11 trillion naira in 2024. We just had a conversation with Dr. Akpoti-Uduaghan, and he explained and in a way sort of defended the current administration, while saying that they understand the struggles, but it's maybe not a current reflection of the complete reality of what's happening, and that 2 years is not enough time to just conclude on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's policies. They need the remaining 2 years to be able to get a full picture. But let's get your thoughts on the current state of the economy, especially with manufacturers lamenting.
Dr. Bashua is paid to defend the government. You know, so it's a normal thing, it's natural. And the man is capable. He's capable to defend the government. You know, so, and to me, he's doing a good job. You know, but he should come out with more facts to convince Nigerians that yes, what he's saying is the truth. Come out with more facts. But you don't want to see the facts on the table where they can make judgment on what he's saying. But he's doing a good job in doing that. He's being paid to do it, and he's doing it well. You see, when the government came in, the first thing the president did was to remove subsidy. And that affected all the sectors. All the sectors. Don't forget that if you don't have industries, particularly manufacturing industries, there's no way you can grow your GDP and GMP. You cannot rely solely on oil for foreign exchange. So the president's economic policies is not helping that industry. That is why they are closing down. Some are even going to neighboring countries like Ghana. You know, that's why they are closing down. But thank God, efforts have been made by the government to see how they can cushion the effects, subsidize what they are doing, and make sure they upstream once again. Because if these companies are closing down, just be going.
You said over 18,000 jobs lost.
Yeah, that's the problem, and the main function of government is to make sure that people are gainfully employed. If people are losing their job and in government, they are not doing well. So I think some policies have been put in place, right, to revitalize these industries so people can get back to work. Okay. I think they're doing it, but much needs to be done. You know, the policies are germinating. We are seeing the effects, but it's not truly firmly on ground. But our youth are still unemployed, and it's not good for the government.
Many of them.
Now let's go to the punch. We're trying to milk as much as we can from the little time we have left. The punch front page says, Grim toll, states move to evacuate flood zones. We heard about the disaster in Niger State. Niger has buried over 153 people. It's estimated that the death toll is above 200. States brace for heavy rain. Citizens plead for action. Mokwa survivors fear diseases outbreak. I'm sure NEMA and the states and organized private sectors donors will get into full swing in the beginning of this week. My question to you is, this is an act of God. We know it's not, we talk about climate change. There is something that we can't avoid. But by moving and evacuating flood zones, is this after the fact? Because they're looking at other areas that are prone to floods and say, look, let's evacuate this.
Don't forget that on this program about 3-4 weeks ago, I applauded the efforts of this uncle lady when she was raising that issue
of floods. Yes.
Of floods. You know, and the NEMA was saying that all states should gear up, you know, to forestall this issue of flooding, be it flash flooding or real flooding. What we saw in Niger State, my brother.
It's terrible.
That was not a child play.
I think it's scary.
The thing was just carrying people. The flood was just carrying people, and they were helpless. People were helplessly looking at their neighbors and their sisters and brothers being carried away by flood. So I think we raised that issue here, and I thanked her for doing a good job. And I said that was what
and New Central
I expected the media to be doing.
New Central is on top of the situation.
Absolutely,
I believe we have a correspondent.
Yes.
Sure. There's a Mokwa right now.
You guys raised that issue here on this program. Right. And I think if not belated, what the government is doing is the right. What they're doing is the right thing.
Okay, let's get to know what they're doing. We have Joshua Mari, who's bringing us update from Mokwa. Good morning, Joshua. What's the current situation with the floods? Talk to us.
Good morning to you, Olive. I am live at Bege Primary School, the earlier designated emergency camp for those affected by the flood incident. Well, this morning with indeed fiasco, fiesta particularly, the wife of the governor is expected to come here and distribute some relief materials. But notwithstanding, the question is, it is 5 days after, almost 5 days after the flood incident and 3 days before Salah. Considering the fact that most people who are residents here are Muslims, the question is, how are they going to cope up with the celebration of the Salah? Well, is the government putting that in place? I spoke to some of the residents, and particularly one of the ward chief of the most affected area, and he told me verbatim that there was no camp. I asked him what he meant by that. He said that the camp provided and designated for them is more or less just something in structure, but not put in place particularly. It is quite disheartening that just almost 5 days after, the residents in this area are trying to find their bearing, and most of them, they are being helped by community members, friends, families, and well-wishers who have their cases at heart. How much of the government is being felt in this particular situation is one of the questions we'll be asking residents as time goes on.
Joshua, you talked about the First Lady of Niger State visiting Mokwa today, expected to visit. What do you see there? Are there emergency responders? Have you spoken to NEMA officials? What's the federal government's response to this? Have you spoken to officials of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs? And what federal presence can we feel in Mokwa as we speak?
I was in this camp as early as 6 a.m. this morning. I can tell you for sure that the amount of persons I saw at this camp were not more than 10 persons, and these people were not affected by the flood. I went through the camp, observed around. There was no government presence in this camp as early as 6 a.m. That means that these people are being left to their fate. They said that some outreach and medical supplies were made to them. Well, I took a stroll, and what I could count were just 5 packets of paracetamol on the ground. Now, that raises a question. If the government really have these people in mind, do they have these people in mind? Are there any provisions for these people? Well, they are even raising concerns over maybe diseases, outbreaks, and the likes. I even paid a visit to the community, and standing in that particular community, I could smell that pungent smell of dead, rotten animals. I don't know for sure if those animals were dead, if they were dead animals, or particularly people who were buried under the rubble after the devastating effect of that flood. It is something that I'll have to look at, and News Central will take a very, very close eye, or maybe a bird's eye view on the happenings around this local government, which is Mokwa.
Thank you so much, Joshua, for giving us updates, and we'll definitely touch base with you. I'm sure in our subsequent programming, you would also come in with more reports. Thanks for your time. Let's move back to the front pages of the newspapers there. Let's go to the Punch, back to the Punch, because we have very little time. Defamation, Natasha to appear in court on Tuesday. And then some banks' reserves with CBN surged to 18.8 trillion naira. And not forgetting too, Nigeria's petrol price 55% below West African average, Dangote says. But I'd like us to take a look at this particular story. This Natasha returning to court on Tuesday, tomorrow. She'll be back in court for the defamation. And there's a video where she's made new, allegations again. She said a lot about the National Assembly, what they're doing there, what Nigerians should know about. Do you think she's talking too much?
Nigerians are waiting to see the end of this Natasha saga. And this thing was unfolding just last week or thereabout. The federal government went to court, to add to the problem of the woman. They went to court and charged her for defamation. And senior lawyers like Falana, Okutepa, they came out last week to query the position of the federal government that does it mean that people can no longer speak out their minds? Why are you joining the suit of the National Assembly and the government of Kogi? So I think Nigeria is interested in it, and it will be advisable for the government to be very careful more circumspect in dealing with this matter. You know, because Falano and the other lawyer, they've raised important legal issues, you know, and constitutional issues on it. So I think they should be very careful. And I don't see, that's my personal opinion anyway, I don't see Natasha losing out in this thing. Because the onus is now on the National Assembly, particularly the Senate, you know, and Fabio, to come out clean.
Who put the onus on them? Because now
there's a moral weight, there's a moral question now, hanging on the neck of National Assembly.
So that question,
Assembly, particularly at Fabio.
So that moral question that you are talking about,
to do the right thing.
who is going to enforce
and the
that moral question?
The federal government cannot be joining issues that is not relevant to them, does not concern them. You know, people are now saying that doesn't mean that people cannot raise questions, not like the way I'm speaking now. I'm going to my opinion, provided by the Constitution. You know, so Natasha should not be denied that right to speak out against what she feels and not right. You know, so I think I just are looking at what will happen tomorrow. You know, so the police in their court, they should defend it.
I mean, you talk about the moral right, and again, like that concerns me, because when this happened, that was one thing that a number of us said, that if you say that nothing of the sort happened, you know, I mean, you should be able to not feel like you're in any measure stifling her. But now it seems that the federal government has, by virtue of taking her to court, overtly taken sides with Senator Godswill Akpabio and the Senate against Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. And I wonder how all of this...
People are saying this is not a criminal matter. It's a civil case. So you go to court, claim damages, not trying to punish Natasha for speaking out. So people are looking at, people are watching.
Let's talk about the CNG. Hopefully we can talk about this as quickly as possible. Vanguard newspaper, the front page says, federal government's gas-powered vehicle scheme runs into major hitch nationwide. 785.6 billion naira investment threatened. Refuel stations, conversion centers, other facilities grossly inadequate. CNG buses, other equipment rots in parking lots. Current pain is temporary, the presidential CNG initiative says. We've talked about this CNG because this is one of the pride of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. After student loan, you know, they mentioned CNG as one of the pride of the current administration. But now, reports are having it that it's being threatened, investment is being threatened in this regard. What do we make of this?
I think the government should come out and explain to Nigerians what is really going on.
You see that some people are not doing that.
Because you see, what I realize, anytime I'm driving by,
just here. You have just one in a that serves.
People are really interested. They've converted their
vehicle
to gas. Gas powered engine. So, and it's been working well for them, based on what I've been hearing. So what happened? I think they should come out and explain to us what is really going on. It should not be the Nigerian way. That we cannot get it right. Then they should come and explain to us, because most Nigerians are interested in powering their vehicle with gas for the cost of petrol. So the alternative should be, how can they make it work? Now that there's a bottleneck, people in charge should come and explain to Nigerians what is going on.
Okay.
All right, let's look at another one.
But you applaud Vanguard from bringing that issue.
Yes.
And making it I think
it was one of the questions we wanted to ask the essay to the president's office, but of course, due to time, we wanted to talk about the CNG and it's the inability for Nigerians to get at least some form of succor while running away from buying expensive fuel. Let's look at this story as well. Nigeria, 6 others affected as Saudi Arabia suspends block work visa. It's like it's getting even tougher for us inside the Vanguard newspaper. It has that story. Nigeria, 6 others affected as Saudi Arabia suspends block work visa. Remember that Nigerians already are facing, it's like the passport is starting to go through a lot of challenges from different countries, from one border to the other. I mean, even the former, sorry to break in, the former governor of Rivers State said that he was, remember what he said? That's
went to one country for
yes, and then he was held there for hours.
No, I don't think we should raise that alarm. No. You see, Nigerians are very, very intelligent professionals. They're everywhere in the world. I beg you. No country can talk with Nigeria's intelligence and professionalism. What we are saying is just
isolated.
Nigerians are everywhere. My brother, because of our intelligence, they cannot do without us. So these are just flash in the pan. Yeah, I don't think we should delve more on doing those things. In Saudi Arabia, Nigerians are there teaching. Nigerians are one of the best Quranic teachers. Best Quranic in Saudi Arabia, they're Nigerians. I mentioned if I find that, please then, Amechi should not overstretch that point.
I'm glad that you mentioned Amechi, because Amechi's birthday happened on Saturday. A number of them have talked about how the politicians are weaponizing poverty.